Hey everybody, good morning. So today we continue on the Pluralsight course review of my courses, which are in the professional development and the soft skills area or space. And this is the 12th of the series. I'm calling it I'm saying it's 30 days for all the days in April, but I'm not doing weekends. So I'll probably go until I'm done and then have to do 10 later, which I plan on doing. I'm not going to do these every day after April, but I'll do them once or twice a week. So anyways, today we're going to talk about your next promotion, and the course is called How to Get Your Next Promotion. And so this is actually a pretty cool course. It's about 2 hours long. And once again, man, honestly, I really feel important, or I feel strongly that when I go in and do a course, I'm not just taking a blog post that I've read or that I would write and creating, hey, here's 10 things you need to know on how to get your next promotion. Like I really put a lot of thought into this and shared a lot of ideas on how I would advise you if you and I were sitting across the table from each other and chatting about your career and stuff. These are the things that I would really tell you and advise you to do. So anyways, let me tell a quick story. When I was getting out of college, I got no career guidance, right? There was one professor who every once in a while would talk about like the real world and what it's really like, the career path and how to get a job and what it was like to work in corporate America and stuff like that. And those are my most fun memories. I did fine in the class. I was a programming class and I did fine in the class, but man, I loved hearing about like the hope and the vision of what was coming up in the future. And so that was cool, but it was really frustrating because none of the other professors really talked about career stuff. And so anyways, one day, it was a Saturday, I'd been working on a group project and my friend and I were walking out of the building. And we were right behind another professor, and he was like the assistant dean of the department, or the dean, or I don't know what he was. He was some big wig. Everybody in the department reported to him. And so anyways, we were chatting as we were walking out of the building, and I was like, hey, so what am I looking at? Like, really, when I graduate with this degree? And he's like, well, you're going to go work in tech support or customer support for $30,000 a year. And then you're just going to work your way up the path. And I thought, well, I don't have a problem working in customer support or working in tech support. And I don't have a problem paying my dues and, learning the ropes and figuring out how to do all that stuff. But I don't want to make $30,000 a year. Like, that sucks. And so even back in 1999, I think, or 2000, whenever it was that I got my degree, $30,000 a year did not sound interesting to me at all. And so anyways, I was like, is there anything I could do that would help propel me or help me jump over that step or whatever? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Go get an internship. And you have to understand, I'd been in this program, the CIS program, for a while, and I knew all the professors and they knew me, and I'd been into all these classes. And this was the first time that I had heard anyone seriously talk about getting an internship. And I guess I must have been a junior because I worked, long story short, I got the internship. I worked there for 18 months or so. And so I must have been a junior. So anyways, he's like, yeah, go get an internship. This is a Saturday morning. And like I said, I'd never heard this in any of the classes. He says, Simplot, which is a really big employer in the town where I was at, Simplot is looking for an intern on their web intranet, and they're having their final interviews on Monday morning. And I was like, what a complete disservice you guys have done for us to not tell us. Like, why have you not been telling? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they probably told all the Rockstar students to go apply. And I probably wasn't on that list of Rockstar students. So anyways, I found out went there on, I submitted, went in to do an interview. At the time I was working in what could have been a career job. It wasn't in IT. And I was working, and it was good. But it was not a career path that I wanted to be on. And so I remember this must have been in, I think, 1998 maybe. And I got on the only suit that I had, which I'm pretty sure was from the 70s. It was like black and white checkered, and it was really small checkers. So like it kind of looked grayish, maybe stylish, and it'd probably be stylish today. But man, I felt like a dork with that suit. It was not the style that I would have chosen, but it was the only thing I had. And it was threadbare. And, I was a poor college student. I didn't really have any money to go dress up. And I'm pretty sure it didn't fit well because, I had been leaner in my younger years. And as a college student, I was eating out of my car, going from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m, just grabbing food where I could. And none of the food was ever healthy. And so I remember getting out of my junky old car with my junky old suit, getting ready to walk into this interview. And I don't like interviewing because I have a potential for failure, and I just don't like putting myself in that situation. And so I remember just laughing in the parking lot. I'm walking up and I'm just laughing, and I'm like, I already have a job. Like, I'm fine. I don't need this. And I guess I was mentally talking myself out of it. Long story short, I got the internship, and it was amazing. It was so fantastic. They didn't treat me like an intern. They treated me like someone on their team. And it was just super fantastic. There was a point where I actually got switched from intern to, I don't think I was ever full-time, but I switched my status from temporary intern to like this, I guess, part-time, and I got a little bump in pay and stuff like that. All right, so let me fast forward. So one day, my coworker gets a phone call, and he never ever got phone calls. we shared a cubicle, and so anyways, we didn't face each other. Our backs were towards each other, and I remember just kind of listening in on this phone call that was weird because somebody actually was interested in talking to him, and so all I heard was yeah, no, I don't think I would be interested. Okay, thanks, bye. And somehow I knew that this was like a freelance opportunity or something like that. And so anyways, after like 5 or 10, 15 minutes, it felt like an eternity. I turn around, I was like really nonchalant. I'm like, hey, what was that call about? Like, because at the time I was really interested in doing any kind of freelancing that I could have done. And getting involved more as a developer and a web developer and all that stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, well, there's this guy, his name is Dave Hermione Sonnen or something. He didn't even pronounce the name right. And he's like, he works over at this company, which was a fairly decent employer in town. And he said that they're looking for someone to do some work on their intranet. And I just told him I wasn't interested. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, I might be interested in that. Like, do you have his contact info? And he's like, yeah, it's right here. So he gave me a name and number on a little yellow sticky, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go. I don't know. I made some excuse, and then I totally beelined it for one of those private glass offices, like in the open office area. You have a lot of cubicles and stuff, and then you have these little private office glass little conference room type thing. So I jumped in a conference room, called him, and next thing you know, him and I are sitting down, meeting and talking. And so I got this, he called it an internship. I called it a contracting job because I was making like double what I was making in my internship. And I was putting together their intranet. And my plan was to, as soon as I graduated, which I think was maybe a few months later, my plan was to walk across stage, jump into a U-Haul with my wife, and drive down to Austin, Texas. Because at the time, Dell Computers was super hot down in Austin. And all I knew was that I wanted to work for Dell Computers. And it was just super exciting. So anyways, I worked for this company for, I don't know, 6 months or so. And I did really cool stuff. Like I was very impactful. On day one, I made a huge impact. Funny story, I went in and they told me, they're like, yeah, we got a T1 line in here and it's really impressive. And I was like, okay, cool, T1. And so I go in and I work there, and I found out that there was one AOL dial-up account that everybody was sharing. And the president, he was on it all the time, writing personal emails to his family or whatever. And so he took up one of the seats of this dial-up account. I think there were 3 seats. And then the controller might have taken up the other one. I don't remember exactly who did what, but it was always like, if you ever want to get online, and we're in this beautiful office building, and they said they had T1, but nobody could get on the internet because there was one shared AOL account and they didn't know what to do. And I went to my boss and I was like, hey, what's the deal with this T1? And he's like, I don't really know. It's a good, here's our ISP. So I got in the car and I drove down, really small town. I drove down the road. About 5 minutes later, I'm sitting at the ISP's office and I was like, hey, what's going on with this internet connection? Do we have a T1 there? And they're like, oh yeah, totally. You guys have been paying for it forever. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I mean, what do we need to do to turn it on? And they're like, oh, you just need to tell us and we'll flip the switch. And so anyways, by the time I got back to the office, I was the hero. Everybody had high-speed internet at their desk, and it was because of me, and I was the hero. It was really, really quite funny. You can do so many impactful things in your company that aren't recognized, or that, they really are important and they're cool and stuff like that. But sometimes just the simplest little eensy weensy things like that propels your career. So anyways, I'm not saying that propelled my career, but it certainly put me on the map of everybody in the office. All right, so back in 1990, must have been 99. I think I was getting ready to graduate. And so I'm working there as a contractor / intern. And I was getting the heck out of that city and the state. Like, I was done. We're going down to Austin, Texas. And I said, hey, by the way, when I leave, because I'm leaving, I have no intentions of sticking around. I said, when I leave, you need to hire somebody to replace me. This is a full-time job. Like, you thought you wanted someone to come in and do some programming on your little intranet website, but man, you got this external website and this other e-commerce external website, and then you have all of your networking needs, and you have supporting multiple field office outside. And what they had done until that point, the CFO had managed about 5 contractors. And when I got in, I went into any situation that had to do with technology, and there was a problem. And so I'd call the last contractor who had worked on it. And they're like, oh, well, we did this and it was the right thing. It was $5,000. But this other contractor came in and messed it all up. And I'll tell you what, man, weeks and weeks of that was all that I heard was just the other contractor messed up what we did. We got paid, but the other people messed it up. And there was a lot of finger pointing. And so I didn't fire all of the contractors. I just didn't call them anymore. Took it all under my wing. Found one group of people that I could contract out to, and I knew them, and I was confident that they would do an excellent job, which they did. So anyways, I basically told him, this is a full-time gig. Like, you have to hire somebody full-time after I leave. And he's like, well, will you do me a favor and write up a job description? Because you know more about what I need than I know. And I was like, all right, yeah, no problem. So I wrote a job description. And I put a salary, not requirement, but I was like, this is like $50,000 a year. And so I wrote that up and I put the $50,000, and then he came back to me and he's like, I want you to do this. Like, I want you to take this job. And I was like, I'm moving to Texas. And he's like, no, I'd really like you to stay. And long story short, it was kind of funny that I wrote my own job description and I wrote my own salary. I probably should have gone a little bit higher, although for that company, $50,000 was really, really high, especially for someone just out of school. So fast forward a year, I'd worked there for a year. Things were great. We bought a house. We bought this amazing car, which we shouldn't have got. I was really excited about this super awesome car without realizing that a super awesome car came with super awesome payments. And even though I was making almost double what my professor said I was going to make, it was still pretty irresponsible. So anyways, making $50,000 a year. A year later, I walk into his office to do the annual performance review. And this was my first real time doing a real annual performance review. And I was excited. I knew that at the end he was going to say, and here's how much your raise is. And I knew we were going to talk a little bit about the year and, maybe stuff I could improve or stuff I did well or whatever. So we go through this formal conversation that I wasn't super impressed with. Like I didn't walk out of there feeling very inspired or having gotten feedback or anything like that. And so he says, all right, so we're going to adjust your salary from 50,000 to 60,000. And I thought, this is awesome. Like a 20% raise is so cool. So, it was only 10 grand a month, but it was 20%. And I thought, this is really cool. So anyways, great. It was awesome. So the next year I go back into the office for my annual review and I'm thinking, okay, so last time was 20%. If I only get 10% this time, then I'm at 66 and I'm okay with that. Like it was really such a small town. The cost of living was super low and 50,000 was really good wages in that little town back then. So I was super excited. I walk into his office again. I didn't do anything to prepare for this, right? I just went in and kind of like, we had a really cool relationship. And so it was like, hey, you're driving this and I trust you and stuff like that. So we go through our regular conversation. And then at the end, he says, okay, so we're going to adjust your salary and your new salary. And he was really happy and pleased or whatever. He's like, your new salary is 63,000. And I was like, I don't know physically how I reacted, and I don't know the words that I said. I didn't do anything to burn any bridges because, it was a job. But I was inside. I was like, are you kidding me? You last year you gave me a 20% raise and now I get a 5% raise. Like I remember the thought, this was the thought. This wasn't even worth me walking down the hallway to your office. It was like 4 doors down, but I was like, why am I walking down the hallway for you just to tell me you're going to give me a $3,000 a year raise? This is ridiculous. And I was just really, really not happy with it. And so that actually maybe planted a few of the seeds for the rest of my career when I was like thinking about money and thinking about potential and stuff like that. By the way, I just heard a year or so ago, I heard that you don't take, or you should never take a job on promises of what you might make, right? So whatever you get hired at, you can bank on that. Hopefully, like I know of people who've actually got hired at something and then they got it cut in by a third for some stupid reason outside of their control or outside of their performance. But the advice that I heard was never take a job based on how much they tell you you're going to make. I actually did that a couple years ago and I went in way lower than what I thought I should have gone in for, but I went in for the opportunity and the growth opportunity, right? So the actual role and what I would be doing, I was super excited about, and the person that I'd be working for, I was excited about. And there was a lot of talk about, hey man, the sky's the limit. You can make so much money, and let's get these things done, and then you can get promotions, and there's really no cap on how much you can make. And then the person who told me that was gone, and then I was gone, and it was like, wait a minute, I just spent the last 10 months working on stuff. And all these kind of soft promises that were unwritten are now unfulfilled. So anyways, that's a little bit of my story. It's a little bit of where I'm coming from and the attitude that I bring into this. There's one more angle of attitude that makes me really passionate about this topic. And it is that I want you to understand what a boss wants. I want you to understand how a boss thinks, right? So think about it. What does your boss want? What does your boss want from you or your colleagues? Anybody that reports to your boss. So I just wrote down a few things that I want in my employees. And I've told people I cannot hire people that I have to chase. I can't hire people that I have to follow up with. I love the idea of hiring competent people, putting them in a position, and then just kind of patting them and saying, go on, go do your thing. Like, I don't want to babysit you and I don't want to chase you. And so what I want as a boss are these things. I want you to be proactive. If you see a need somewhere, I want you to figure out how to fill that need. I want you to take care of it. I don't want you to come ask me permission to do every single little thing. Whatever's within your stewardship, I want you to be proactive on. I want results, and I need results. Like, I need to be able to go back and justify why you're even on my team and why I'm paying you. And if I have a hard time, I was actually in a meeting, let me see, where it was at one of the companies where I was in a management position. I was in a meeting where I had multiple people above me say, why is this person on the team? What have they done? What are the quantifiable results? Can we even list one thing that this person has accomplished? And I was like, yeah, this sucks. This conversation really sucks. I mean, first of all, I had, as a supervisor, I had to be in a position where I could come up with, here's the list of what this person did. But to even have a series of management who's sitting around questioning if you bring value to the organization, that's ridiculous. So I want you to have results, and I want to be able to talk about them. Now, I know some people are really big on, like, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to make an impact, I'm going to keep my nose clean, and I'm not going to rock the boat. And I'm not saying that you don't have that you have to do anything against any of that, but I think it's important that you spend time, not necessarily not rocking the boat. Let me switch this view here real quick. There we go. So I think it's important that you spend time not necessarily not rocking the boat, but letting people know that you're actually doing stuff and having your name on things. And I know that's kind of uncomfortable for a lot of people, but this becomes part of your reputation. It becomes part of your personal brand. It becomes part of your professional brand. The third thing that I wrote down that I want as a boss is I want you to be pleasant. I don't need a jerk. I don't need somebody who I actually have had managers come into my office and say, hey, your guy like did this stuff and that's not cool. And I was like, oh, sorry. So somehow the way we talk about it as hiring managers or whatever in the talent acquisition space, I want you to fit into my culture. I want you to fit into my team culture and my company culture, which can mean a lot of things, but it partially means that I want you to be cool. Like, I want you to not be a source of friction and problems that I'm going to have to go deal with your personality with other people in the office. The fourth thing that I wrote down is I want you to be competent. And here in the course, I talk about the fourth module is hard skills, how to prepare for your next role, and we'll dig into that in just a little bit. And then the fifth thing, and this comes from something I talked about on one of these other recordings that I did, was I want justification. So when it's time to give you a promotion, when it's time to give you a raise, when it's time to give you a merit increase, when it's time to give you discretionary bonus or anything like that, I want to be able to take something with teeth and go back and justify that. And so that's where it was on the onboarding session that I was talking about a few days ago. I want you to keep a list, keep a journal of your accomplishments. And so when we sit down in a year, instead of, first of all, companies should not be doing annual reviews. They should be doing reviews that are more frequent than a year, because too many things happen over the course of a year. One of the problems is that you sit down at the end of the year and your memory goes back for like the last 2 or 3 months. And if it does go back 10 months, then it might be like there's so many things that have happened in the last 10 months that it's not accurate, right? And so if you came to me and you were like, hey, you know what? So here is what I've accomplished in the last year. So 12 months ago, I started this. Here's what my objectives and my goals were, my KPIs, and here's what I did, and here's how I went above and beyond, and stuff like that. And so if you can keep records, don't depend on me as the boss to keep records like I should, but I also should do 80 other things that I'm not getting around to, right? And honestly, who's more interested in your raise, you or me? You got to be proactive about this. So I actually wrote on my page, this next promotion course has to do with you being proactive, strategic, and having a plan. Okay, so those are my 5 things that I want as a boss. I imagine if you've ever been a boss, then you might add to that list. The idea behind this course is being proactive and strategic. So let's just dig in real quick to what is in this course. And so there's actually 5 modules. It's 2 hours long. And once again, it's pretty good. There's a lot of stuff in here. So the first module is your career, where you are and where you go. And I talk about writing your own story. This is the idea that I'm not letting my boss, and I'm not letting executives, and I'm not letting HR define where I want to be in my career or by the end of my career. I want you to create your own vision. I don't care if you're 19 or you're 59. Where do you want to be and go and do? What do you want to do in your career? And I want you to write that in a story. Talk about career paths and understanding what career paths are and what career paths actually look like. I talk about whatever has created success for you so you can identify some of your strengths that can help you in your career path. I talk about titles, what they mean and when they actually matter, because sometimes they don't matter. I talked about your role. I talked about going from a technology person to a manager. So I actually went from a programmer where I'd get my hands dirty and I'd do cool stuff and I learned stuff and I created stuff. I went from that to a manager, and man, it was different. What I didn't realize, and this isn't true for everybody, but for me it was true, and this had a lot to do with the companies I worked for and stuff. What I didn't realize was that the day I decided to go from programmer into management was the day that I decided, not intentionally, but it was the day that I decided I wasn't ever going to be a programmer again. I can still play around and I can still do stuff, but when I started managing programmers, I jumped to another path. And it's not necessarily good or necessarily bad. I know people who have gone to the management path, hated it, and then went right back into technology, and that's fine. And I've known other people who've gone from developer like myself into management, and now I can have really good conversations with my team at a technical level, and I think that's really important. And for me, it was good. I don't have a regret about that, but I didn't understand that once I jumped out of technology and went into managing projects and products and employees and hiring and contractors and all that stuff, I really changed careers. So I think it's interesting to think about that, because some people think, okay, what's my next logical career progression? It might not be in leadership or management, really. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, then we talk about in the next module, it's called the plan, how to get there. So I talk about, I go into your roadmap and I talk about finding a sponsor. This was a really cool idea where, it's not just you politicking to get whatever promotion or advancement that you want. You're actually latching onto someone who really could be like a mentor. They might be a mentor, but it's someone who has more power, maybe some authority in the organization that can help you with your career goals. And by the way, this is not all within one organization. Your sponsor might be an industry known sponsor that can help you network into other companies and make introductions and stuff like that. But the idea of getting a sponsor for your career path is a really cool idea. All right, I talk about skills and credentials, so certifications. Just yesterday, I talked about getting the project management professional certification from PMI. With Casey Ayers, we talked for about 35 minutes about what that means and the time commitment and the money commitment and the requirements. And we talked about his 38 hours of course prep or exam preparation that's on Pluralsight. You have to study, or you have to do 35 hours of exam prep, and Pluralsight's got you covered there. I should mention real quick, free April, right? So this is April 16th. We still have a solid couple of weeks of actually this week plus the next 2 weeks of free April. So there's a lot of time that you can go jump on Pluralsight for free. Make sure you click on the sign up button by free April. Don't click on another one that says like get your free 10 days or something like that. This sign up should be no credit card, so you don't have to cancel anything come May. If you're watching this after April of 2020, hit me up. I might be able to get you a 30-day pass. All right, so we talked about the credentials, the PMP, and whatever credentials. Some credentials are important and valuable, and some are just a waste of time. Like they don't carry any weight. So before you pursue getting any of these credentials, I would have you talk to people in your company and people in your industry and say, hey, which ones are really valuable? Where should I spend my time? Which ones are in demand? If I were to get laid off today and have to go look at other companies, which credentials would, or certifications or whatever, would be impressive to these other companies? Talked about moving to another city. And honestly, I didn't watch this course this morning. I usually watch these courses in the morning before I talk about them, but I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on this. And I'm not sure if I talk about this in the course, but I moved from the headquarters in Idaho, in that small town, down to the Salt Lake area for a few different reasons. What I didn't understand was that I no longer had a physical presence daily in that office to politic. And I'll tell you what, it sounds so stupid when you have to say it that way. Why should I have to be there physically in order to politic? The reality is, this is how things happen in companies, right? So what I did was I moved about 3 or 4 hours south, and I was in a position where I was able to work closer with my developers and closer with customer support and closer with anything that had to do with sales and marketing, but which meant I was actually doing my job, right? By this time I was really close to becoming general manager, but I might have been general manager at the time. Anyways, I was doing my job. I was doing what they had paid me for, not realizing that the stupid part of politicking was I was neglecting it and somebody else was doing it. And so they had the attention of the other people on the board. I was on the board, but now I'm remote, right? They had the attention of the other people on the board, and they were going up talking about things that I could have been doing and should have been doing. You know, here I am running the company and not politicking. And so anyways, I learned a lesson, which was, be close to those people in authority and those decision makers physically so that you can have that communication and that relationship. If you're not, I'm not saying you have to be in the same town or in the same building. If you're not, make sure you really strategically up your communication game. You can't let weeks or a month go by and only chat in the monthly meeting. You need to keep up that relationship and maybe even increase the amount of information that you're giving to the bosses, so that when somebody does come behind your back and does that crappy politicking stuff to kind of nudge you out and move into your position, they can, on the one hand, if you're not communicating well, then what they're hearing is, oh yeah, I actually haven't heard from Jason. He's probably wasting all this company time and not doing anything. But if I were regularly sending accomplishments and updates and having that really good communication, they would probably say, wait a minute, this is not in line with what I'm hearing from Jason. So I need to go figure out what the truth is. All right, talk about communicating your skills and expertise, which probably has a lot to do with, any guesses? Personal branding, right? How do I understand what my skills and expertise are? And then how frequently do I communicate what those are? And then, so the next module is on soft skills, which is actually pretty fun because this is one of my earliest courses with Pluralsight. I didn't realize that I would be talking so much about soft skills. So there's a whole module here on soft skills. So I talk about the truth about soft skills, what are soft skills, universal soft skills to enhance unique soft skills for your next role, how to package your soft skills, which is what? Probably personal branding, how to improve your soft skills, book recommendations. And then down here below I have, all right, let me collapse some of these. I think I'm running out of room here. All right, so then I got hard skills, very similar. The truth about hard skills, what are hard skills, universal hard skills for developers, unique hard skills for your next role, packaging your hard skills, how to improve your hard skills. A lot of the hard skill stuff, seriously, you're not gonna find a better place than on Pluralsight. For the price, you pay like $300 a year, give or take, and depending on whatever special offers you get in on. If you are working in data, if you're working in design, if you're working on product management, project management, business analysis, if you're working in a particular language, whatever it is, go to Pluralsight and work on your hard skills. And if they have a skill IQ where you can quantify, skill IQ is basically where you take this assessment or test, and then at the end you get rated against other people who have taken that assessment. So you can find out that, you know, of all the people who have took this, you're in the top 5 percentile. That's something you could take to the bank. That's something you can take to future employer and say, hey, look, you know, amongst the 1,000 other people or thousands of other people who did this, I'm in the top 5%. Like I am expert level or something like that. I think one of the most important messages in this course is, again, packaging your skills, right? So how do you talk about what your proficiencies are? If you're in sales, how are you going to tell me that you're expert at sales? If you're in account management, how do you package that? I don't care what your hard skills are. I want you to be able to communicate what they are and give me some kind of context. Help me understand relatively how you compare against and with other people. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about your packaging your hard skills. And then the where do we go from here, which is, this is all the actionable stuff. Okay, so once you go through all this stuff, what do I get to do? What do I do right now? What if there are no opportunities? Well, there's always opportunities. They might not be at your company, but there's always opportunities. What happens when you realize the promotion you got, you really don't want? What happens if you're doing this stuff and you're not getting promoted, which might have a lot more to do with the company and the culture than with you? And then I talk about the promotion that really is coming up. So that is it. This is the course, How to Get Your Next Promotion. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about mentoring, which is how to be a better mentor and how to be a better mentee. If you have any questions, just hit me up, jason@jibberjobber.com. You can find any of my courses by Googling Pluralsight Jason Alba or going into the search box in Pluralsight and typing Alba. With that, I wish you well. I'd love to hear what you're doing about your next promotion. Feel free to reach out to me and we'll talk to you tomorrow.